Buddy, that for the longest time I just met briefly at a farmer's market, but I've always thought of this guy. He's been one of my, I guess you could call him a local hero, and the reason why is because of his story. You know, when I came here to Portland, there was a woman I met. Her name was Viva Las Vegas, and she was a dancer, and she got breast cancer. And she wrote there was a Portland Weekly, and she wrote a story about her survival and how she overcame all of her problems. And it was around the time that I had my cancer. And I learned from her some things. And then along came a guy named Dahl, who had a story that I thought was most remarkable. One of those stories of, you know, clawing your way back into success after being in the lowest of your life. And I used his story too as an inspiration so I could get back on my feet and get things going again with my show and everything else. And so today I want to introduce you to the infamous and famous Dahl of Dave's Killer Bread. You know, that's another thing too, is that your bread has made it on my table many times, and every time I eat that bread I just feel proud that there's somebody out there like you who was able to go from a very low point in your life and just get all the way to this point where just an amazing story. So welcome to Channel Weird, Dahl. I don't know why you would be on Channel Weird. You're not, well, you're weird, but you're
Channel
not.
Channel Weird, that's a new name, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. It used to be Channel Zero, now we should call it Channel Weird.
But I like it.
Talkcast PDX, this is your baby as well. This is the studio. You've invested your time and money in it. And but I wanted, you know, because since we're talking to a national audience, and I'm sure beyond Portland, nobody knows of your fame and infamous
Well, they do,
life.
actually. Not so much my story, but they know the bread.
Yeah, they know about the bread because the bread is amazing. It's just, I mean, it's like meat. You got to have it on your table. It's amazing.
It is still for me, too.
Yeah. So, so Dave, why don't you tell us about your story, how you grew up and what happened to you and why your story is so important for people.
Well, I grew up with really, big mental problems, I guess is the word we would look for. I wasn't bad in school, not bad. I was able to do okay, but I eventually started, I just was so miserable. And, it's hard for me to understand why I was so miserable now because it's been so long. Mm-hmm. But I grew up in a family that I didn't like to be in. I didn't like to be a baker. I didn't like that my dad was a baker. It was weird, And, we worked our asses off, and that was how it was. And we went to school. I went Seventh-day Adventist. I was a Seventh-day Adventist, and I went to Seventh-day Adventist schools. So it was a fairly small community, but we all, but even in that small community, I didn't fit in, you know. Right. So that was my whole life up to, starting to do drugs, and drugs were, my deal. I started shooting meth and eventually other drugs too, but mostly meth.
How young were you when you started using meth?
It was, honestly, that the shooting the drugs didn't happen until early 20s.
Right.
Which is late for most people. Mm-hmm. But for me, I was a sheltered kid, so I'm going out there and, experiencing life and shooting drugs. I just remember being so depressed that when I put that needle full of meth in my arm, and see, I didn't care, it'd kill me. You know what I mean?
Right, exactly.
And, I put a needle full of methamphetamine in my arm, and it changed everything. You get what I'm saying? It's like my first real transformation in life. It wasn't like I had better transformations later.
Yeah, I mean, I think at first you're lured into it, and then when you try it, you find yourself, it gives you another perspective. That's one of the reasons why I never really tried LSD. Is because people say, well, you try LSD, you find out who you really are. I don't want to know who I really am.
That can really screw you up.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Finding out what's in your unconscious mind, you're like, I have a hard enough time, my conscious mind working, let alone opening myself up to drugs. I mean, look, when you're kids, you try a few things. You want to experiment with a few things. With me, of course, in high school, I was smoking a little pot. doing that, and we thought we were cool then. Now it's legal.
Yeah.
It's just really
Things have
odd.
changed
yeah,
a lot,
things have
haven't
changed
they?
a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you were depressed with your life. You were depressed with being a baker. You were depressed with everything. You found methamphetamine, and it opened up your life to, to a new perspective. But didn't that also get you nearer to basically a death wish into crime, right?
Yeah. Well, I basically had a death wish when I shot that dope. I mean, it was like, I didn't come from a place where people shoot dope. And so I did that. And then so it was like, okay, I was shocked or surprised, pleasantly surprised that it changed my life. I just had to have it from that point on. So there's like that was essentially, the deal. I didn't have a death wish when I was high.
Right.
I had a death wish when I wasn't high.
Oh, okay. So you didn't feel like you were getting closer to death with
Oh, I didn't care.
You didn't care by then. You didn't care.
I didn't care so much. Yeah.
So eventually, what happened after that? I mean, were you just doing the meth and that, or did you focus yourself on trying to keep a job or a life or anything happening at the time?
I always tried to have a job and stuff, but I wasn't able to, for one reason or another, because it's so unstable. I was so unstable. I get the high, and then all of a sudden you can't get the dope or whatever, and you make mistakes at work and that kind of thing. You're high and you don't sleep much, and it's hard to sustain that. So I would always want to be working, but in the end, I started going to prison. From the time before I went to prison the first time, I was already thinking, as a businessman, I'm going to, sell enough dope or whatever, and I'm going to put the money, maybe I'll do a couple robberies or whatever.
Right.
Stupid stuff. And I'm going to put this money toward a business that I'm going to run, and it's going to be cars. Okay, I was always thought, buy a few cars and work on them and resell them. That was sort of something I always wanted to do.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you went to jail a couple times.
4 times.
4 times.
I mean, I went to prison 4 times. I went to jail tens,
Was it for the drugs, or was it for some other things you've done?
Well, it was all drug related, because I was always doing it to make money for drugs.
What finally turned you around?
Okay, now I was 38 years old. I was in my last trip to prison, my fourth trip to prison. I was doing basically a 10-year sentence, 118 months to be exact, and I got on a list for computer-aided drafting. Very rare opportunity in prison. You have to be on a list you have to be there for years
Right.
to get in that.
Right.
And now they don't even have it anymore. But I was on this list, and my name came up, and I'm like, I'm scared to death, because like, what is this going to be?
Right.
I'm thinking, CAD cam, what's that mean? You know what I mean? Is it like something to do with a camera or whatever?
Exactly. Yeah.
But I really didn't believe in myself and my ability to learn. So that was a great moment for me, because what I did, okay, before I got into the drug or that program, there were nights when I didn't sleep because I was so miserable and so
Right.
like, man, my life's fucked. Why am I doing this? And I finally put the kite. They call it a kite, inmate communication form. I filled it out, sent it to psych services, they call it, and I said, look, I need help. And that was a big deal. In prison, you don't really want to talk about your problems.
Exactly.
That's
Right.
not a deal.
Right.
You don't want to express weakness. And so there I was, asking for help, and nobody knew about it except for the psych services. But then I had to go, when I talked to it was a physician's assistant who prescribed the drugs for me, and it was antidepressant, and it really worked. And what ended up happening is I went to, about the same time I got into this computer-aided drafting program.
Right.
And the combination of things was unbelievable. And that's why I always am such a supporter of that, because it
So you
changed
felt a
my life.
connection. You felt
Yeah.
some sort of connection to this. And, it's funny because they always talk about how most of the time a lot of people who go through this, they have a hard time connecting with something that they really enjoy or they really find fascinating. And that's why they're depressed because, like you said, I was in the baking thing. I didn't like the baking thing. I was miserable. But then you found something you could connect to.
Yeah, and it was after, it was about 12 years into, prison. I've been to 12 years at that point, and I had to do another 3 years.
Right.
So it's amazing because I had, at that point, emotionally, probably wasn't there yet, but I had learned to live without people. I had learned to live without, the appreciation or, the relationships, because people just, forgot about me. And it was a powerful thing, actually, to become, so self-sufficient mentally and so forth. And I was able to, so there's challenges to that too, because when you get out, then relationships are weird, because I don't really need you, so.
You get so used to being solitary that you want to focus on you.
Yeah.
And everything around you is foreign in a way, because you may be in the jail, but everything around you, the world still goes on without you.
It does.
And then when you get out there, it kind of reminds me of when I was in South America. I was there for like 3 years, and when I came back to the United States, I was completely out of my element. I didn't know what to do. I was so used to certain things, and it was hard to get. In fact, I wanted to go back. And it was weird because I'm an American. I like to live here in the United States.
It's probably a good place to go right now.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you don't hear about anybody declaring war in Uruguay or Paraguay or even Argentina. But, it was that kind of feeling that, I need me. That's all I need, is I need me. I don't need you. I don't need you. I don't need you. And so then you end up getting the Superman syndrome, where you're like Clark Kent.
That can happen too.
Yeah,
yes.
you're Clark Kent, and you're like thinking I'm Clark Kent, and nobody knows that I'm Superman because I'm doing this other stuff that I really like doing. And I'm trying to survive. I'm clawing my way to that point, and that's how. That's why your story is so amazing, because I was at that point where, in my career, I was like ready to jump into syndication. I was ready to do all that stuff, and then bam, I got hit with cancer.
Oh man!
And that was like, whoa! I didn't think that I'd ever end up like that. Yeah. And then it was bam, you get it again. You have it on the other kidney.
Yeah, you didn't ask for it. You didn't do something wrong to make it happen.
And it's like, why is this happening to me? And you get told you got to get your life in order. You got to get your ducks in a row because you could be dead. And you're like, wow, okay, I don't want to deal with that.
That's a trip.
And so you're having. I had to get therapy because I had to figure out what I needed to do, because I felt like that. I felt like, I don't need anybody. But I really enjoy the fact that people come around, and you lose friends. You lose people who you thought were your friends
because they don't want to deal with your stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then they come back. You get some people that you never thought were your friends, but all of a sudden just show up and they say, "I want to be your friend." I had this guy named Dahl who I knew.
Somebody who cared about you.
Yeah, sure. I worked with him like during the 9/11 attacks. We were reporters. He comes up and he has a frying pan and he has some cheese and he has some eggs. And I go, "What are you doing here?" He says, "I'm going to make you the best omelet you've ever had." And so he made me an omelet, and it changed my life. It really did, because I started realizing there are people out there that love you.
Yeah.
And they want to reach you. No matter how many barriers you put up,
right,
they still want to reach you and touch your heart.
Well, I've done that with, I have a wife, you know what I mean? So I have that. I have a few other people in my life now. But in those early days, I just didn't need anybody, and that was a great feeling. In a sense, that's powerful.
Yeah.
In another way, it's kind of like lonely, But
yeah.
But I learned to be lonely and alone, and I was good at it, and so I'm thankful I didn't have cancer. Oh my God!
You have to make friends with yourself.
Yeah.
Because that's the point, is that you're looking for fulfillment from other people. When you don't get it, you have to find yourself, and then you have to realize, I have to like myself. I have to make friends with myself. Yeah. I have to develop a tolerance for me.
You have to have your own best company.
Yeah, sometimes it is. That's right. Hey, this is Channel Weird. I'm Clyde Lewis with Dave Dahl, amazing Dave Dahl. right here of Dave's Killer Bread. We're going to be back with more with Dave right here on Channel Weird. We'll be back.
AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com. Are you stressed? I mean, who isn't? Anxiety creeping in? No, not that. Is sleep hard to attain because your brain just won't slow down? We're living in crazy times, and the fear knob has been turned up. Okay, there's an answer. Take a big breath, exhale, and go log on to AncientLifeOil.com. CBD, broad and full spectrum, organic and non-GMO CBD for you to enjoy. Change your tune from fear to calm, from brain overload to clear thinking. 0.003 THC on full spectrum and 0% THC on broad spectrum. Competitive pricing with the best quality. Also know everything is going to get better. No worries, be happy. CBD can help calm so your nerves don't think they're a 6-string electric guitar. Enjoy life, smile, and log on to AncientLifeOil.com for great CBD. That's AncientLifeOil.com. You'll be glad you did.
Hey guys, it's Clyde Lewis. Have you ever wanted Ground Zero merchandise but didn't know where to go? Well, I want to let you know that we now have our own online store with such items as t-shirts, hoodies, decals, tote bags, and other exclusive specialty apparel. There's a secure and easy-to-use shopping cart for your purchases. Coming soon will be signed posters and coffee mugs available as we are constantly adding new items. So shop today at the official Ground Zero store by going to groundzeromerch.com. That's groundzeromerch.com.
Following a disaster, your home emergency kit will be invaluable. Building a kit doesn't take long, and you'll be glad you did when disaster strikes. Here's a list of items to include: a first aid kit, battery-powered or hand crank radio, flashlight, extra batteries, an emergency whistle, cell phone with charger, cash and small bills, a local map with your family meeting place identified, food and water to last 2 weeks, garbage bags, dust masks, and seasonal clothing and footwear. Add prescription medications or any other important items unique to your family's needs. Once you've created your kit, check food expiry dates once a year and update seasonal clothing for growing children. If you have pets, make sure you have everything your furry friends need in an easy-to-carry grab-and-go bag. To learn more about preparing an emergency kit, visit mil.wa.gov/preparedness and get 2 weeks ready.
Be sure to get your low-cost 2-week supply of food with a miraculous 25-year shelf life by going to preparewithgroundzero.com.
Have you noticed that well-known and controversial talk show hosts have recently been censored on the internet by corporate and political interests? This is Clyde Lewis from Ground Zero Radio. And in order to counter against the suppression of information, we've decided to create our own private digitalized playground called Aftermath.media. It's an exclusive online multimedia library featuring videos, movies, audio clips, archive shows, ebooks, e-magazines, documents, and so much more. Our news aggregator, Nucifer, provides current news relating to many of the topics we cover. We'll also be hosting other Ground Zero-friendly podcasts like Into the Paranormal with Jeremy Scott and The Secret Teachings with Ryan Gable. Aftermath.media has a social media platform along with a chat room to interact with many of our listeners. And about once a month, you can chat with me about anything. Mobile apps for Android and Apple are now available. The monthly subscription for Aftermath.media is only $9.99 a month. This includes exclusive access to our library and Ground Zero archive podcasts. If you're just interested in having access to the archive podcast, it's only $4.99 a month. So sign up today by going to Aftermath.media. Again, that's Aftermath.media. And we're back, Channel Weird. I'm Clyde Lewis, Dave Dahl. You know, it's pretty comfortable. We had to just do a show, you and me, I think.
I think it is.
It's been great.
Yeah, it's been great so far. And
Yeah.
I know it's going to continue to be
Clyde
great.
and Dave and Clyde.
Yeah.
Dahl and Lewis
A couple
and
of
Dahl.
Portland weirdos.
Yeah, we're a couple weirdos. Yeah, hanging out. Yeah, and it's weird that, like I was telling you during the break, it's weird that you were on my bucket list to interview. Isn't that weird?
That's really
It's like,
cool. I mean, that's very. I'm honored.
and I know you listen to my show too. It's kind of weird.
do, yeah.
So it's like there are people that I'm very surprised who listen, but having you out there made me feel warm for some reason. I really, like I say, I don't want to sound like a fanboy because I know that can sound bad, but I really do. Let's not bring the room down too much. I mean, we're talking about your life and how it was. Okay, so the very thing you hate is baking.
I used to.
Okay, now you love it, and now it's made you money.
I love it because here's the deal. This is the part of the story I didn't really tell you yet. And
Okay.
It's like when I was 38 years old in prison. I took the meds. I was fortunate to get the meds. They helped. I went to school for drafting. It was
Right.
like learning a trade. And drafting. The thing about drafting is basically, if you're a really good drafter, you learn how to replicate something. Say this thing right here.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
This whole operation. You learn how to do all this, and you make it in 3D space, and then you change it somehow.
Right.
And it's so powerful. And you work with people. It's not like you have it all figured out by yourself, but some people know, well, this is going to make it better.
Mm-hmm.
And so we make it better. So I was fortunate I could have done that the rest of my life.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? I was
Right.
loving it. It's that powerful and beautiful. But a few years later, I had an opportunity to go work with my family again.
Yeah.
After all this. My dad's gone. He was gone a long time ago.
Right.
But my brother invited me back. He saw a change in me. And I went to work for $12 an hour,
Right.
I didn't start ahead of anybody else.
No.
Went to work for $12 an hour, but then I would work an extra 30 hours. It was like 40 hours a week. Then I'd work another 30 hours just because I wanted to.
Because you had the time to.
Yeah. Well,
Again,
that's
when you're
true.
solitary, you do that. You just keep
Yeah.
working is what you do.
Well, that's right. And I didn't have people. I didn't have an old lady. I didn't have all this kind of stuff. I didn't have family. I didn't have all the things that most people have, like challenges to what I did. So I was fortunate in that sense. And then I went to, so my brother was like, okay, what I did, it was cookies at first. He's like, well, these cookies are outdated. We need to change this so they're so that they fit the market, because you back then it was trans fats we need to get rid of.
Right.
Okay, I got rid of the trans fats, and then I started working on other things. And my brother's like, no, okay, that was just a moment. We make bread. That's what we do. We make bread. And I'm like, damn. Because I'm looking around going, man, how am I going to do that? How you look at all the bread that's around.
How do you make it better? How do you make it different? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a challenge.
Exactly.
Big challenge.
Right.
And so the only way to do it was very similar to drafting, is you don't start with some half-ass thing. You find the best.
Right.
And then you go, why is it good? And then how do you make it better based on what you know? And it's a lot of scientific method. You take five batches, and you go. There's one control, and then there's variables, and so you do that. And at first I was producing freaking rocks, and nothing was coming.
Right.
I didn't know what I was doing.
Right.
But I kept learning each time, and it was a blast. And it was a blast, man. That's
See,
all I
whatever
can
you
say.
did. See, this is what's interesting is that when I told my wife I was interviewing you, she says, "You better bring some bread." She said, and it's weird because
In
you
the
don't
old days,
think-
I had bread to bring.
I'm just thinking, you don't think for 1 minute you say, "Well, have him bring some bread," because bread's bread. It'd be like saying, you go and
like
you,
a loaf of Wonder
yeah,
Bread.
like a little, whatever.
Yeah.
But for some reason, your bread or the Dave's Killer bread is the bread. Like I say, it's like meat. You bring it home and people go, whoa, because I like the oat bread myself. That's my favorite.
Which one?
The oat.
Oats and honey, or
The oats and honey.
Yeah.
That was always my favorite.
Yeah.
I'd have it with the peanut butter and jelly or whatever. But and it's true because whenever Dave's Killer bread was in the house, It was one of those things like a delicacy. I'm bringing it. It's kind of like Krispy Kreme donuts.
Yeah.
It's like there's a donut, and then
Special.
there's Krispy Kreme
Yeah.
donuts, right?
Yeah, special,
There's
yeah.
bread, and then there's Dave's Killer Bread. So you did an experimenting process where you finally got the best tasting bread out of the deal.
That's what I did. It's not only the best tasting, but this is what I did. Once I figured out how to make bread that was kind of like everybody else's bread,
The basics.
the basics. Then it was like, okay. Then I started. The first bread that I made was called Blues bread, and I didn't before Killer Bread. Before we even thought of Killer Bread. Now Blues is still around. They changed the name, but it's still Blues. And the thing was, because I'm a blues guy,
Right.
I was like, I'm going to make blues bread. Sounds good to me. So I created the loaf of bread around the name. Everything I did was
Right.
like that. Okay, the name's Blues Bread, so how am I going to make blues bread? So, but it wasn't just, okay, I used blue cornmeal on the outside, but really what made it great was what was inside. And,
Right.
And so but the way it looked when I pulled it out of the oven, it was like, oh yeah, oh yeah. And so I had, people took it home, a couple guys that were working there took it home, and it just raved, and it just kept happening. Raving.
So I want to ask you this question. What's the secret ingredient? Do you have a secret ingredient that makes it? I mean, because it's different. What is it? It's because of your incentive. Something about it. It's like, people would say, why is Clyde so excited about bread? If people knew, I mean, people who have had your bread know why it's so amazing and why it's so good. It doesn't necessarily, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the attitude. Maybe it's what they know behind it, the heritage of it.
I'll tell you exactly why.
Why?
And it's weird because somebody might go, okay, it's a special ingredient that makes it happen.
Right.
Well, the ingredients are important. Those are some of the mitigating factors, if you will.
Right.
I say mitigating because in prison we always like, okay, a mitigating factor will keep you from doing as much time.
Right,
You know what
exactly.
I mean?
Right.
So in the sense of a loaf of bread, those are great ingredients to add, but they are not going to make the bread. You have to be able to, it's not a particular ingredient, it's the amount, it's the ratio of ingredients.
It's chemistry.
Yes, and the cost is higher to do it the way I do it. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so I wasn't thinking about cost. If I had been thinking about cost when I was making that bread, it probably would never happen. I would have made somebody else's bread,
Did you have the opinion that they would pay for quality bread? That's what you thought.
I didn't know that at first.
Oh, but that's what you learned.
I just made the best bread I could.
Yeah.
And then my brother was like, and everybody was like, well, God damn it, nobody's going to pay this kind of money. And we just took it to the farmer's market. That's where we started. And people were happy to pay for it because it was that much better.
Quality. It's always what you value, right? It's if you value something and you value the quality of it. And that's why I say, there's something about it. Look, I'll tell you the truth. Whenever we buy bread, we buy like Franz bread for the kid. But every once in a while, if we really want to have good sandwiches, like my wife says, well, if you want a deli sandwich, you're just going to waste it on Franz bread. You're going to waste it on that.
I can't believe I didn't bring any bread.
Yeah, you're going to waste it on that, or you're going to put it on a good bread like what you get from Dave's. Mm-hmm. And I thought, yeah, it's true. And so every once in a while we'd go in, we'd get it, and we'd if we make a really good deli sandwiches, or we really want to serve to people if we make sandwiches. I remember we had a gig where we made ham sandwiches for a group that was in a just kind of it was a seminar that we did. And when they asked what kind of bread and what kind of ingredients, we said, spare no expense, get Dave's bread because it's the Cadillac of all bread.
Well,
and
now
make it taste better.
Now there's so many knockoffs, everybody's making it, but it's not as good because the knockoffs are always,
Well, of course you're going to have competition.
Yeah.
But it's the brand too. It's the name. It's the blood, sweat, and tears that people know went into that bread. Yeah. I think a lot has to do with it.
Well, that's why I like to tell my story because it's meaningful. It's still meaningful to me, and I feel like it every time I tell my story. I help somebody. So that's good.
Well, yeah. You've gone from prison to now. What's your empire? What I know that's always difficult to say. So what are you worth now, Dave?
Yeah.
What's your monetary worth?
I'm successful.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
I don't know how much money, because, I'll tell you what, I put a lot of money into African art. I don't know
Oh
if you knew
yes,
that.
I know about that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I wouldn't do that again. But next time, if I was going to do it, next lifetime when this happens again,
Yeah, exactly.
I would do guitars, because those are like a known value and all that kind of stuff. But I still am wealthy, and I don't need to. But I haven't increased my wealth since I made the money.
You're just living good.
Yeah.
Living large and in charge.
I have
Dave
a lot.
Dahl with us right here on Channel Weird. It's good to talk to him. We'll be back with more. Don't go away. It's a very interesting story. There's more to it, though. It's like he's hit the success, and then something happens later that we need to talk about. Something that I even thank the Multnomah County Sheriffs and the other police departments. I thanked them. Literally, I did. I'll tell you about
For
that.
not killing me.
For not killing you.
Thank
Exactly. I did. Channel Weird right here. We'll be back.
AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com. Are you stressed? I mean, who isn't? Anxiety creeping in? No, not that. Is sleep hard to attain because your brain just won't slow down? We're living in crazy times, and the fear knob has been turned up. Okay, there's an answer. Take a big breath, exhale, and go log on to AncientLifeOil.com. CBD, broad and full spectrum, organic and non-GMO CBD for you to enjoy. Change your tune from fear to calm, from brain overload to clear thinking. 0.003 THC on full spectrum and 0% THC on broad spectrum. Competitive pricing with the best quality. Also know everything is going to get better. No worries, be happy. CBD can help calm so your nerves don't think they're a 6-string electric guitar. Enjoy life, smile, and log on to AncientLifeOil.com for great CBD. That's AncientLifeOil.com. You'll be glad you did.
Following a disaster, your home emergency kit will be invaluable. Building a kit doesn't take long, and you'll be glad you did when disaster strikes. Here's a list of items to include: a first aid kit, battery-powered or hand crank radio, flashlight, extra batteries, an emergency whistle, cell phone with charger, cash and small bills, a local map with your family meeting place identified, food and water to last 2 weeks, garbage bags, dust masks, and seasonal clothing and footwear. Add prescription medications or any other important items unique to your family's needs. Once you've created your kit, check food expiry dates once a year and update seasonal clothing for growing children. If you have pets, make sure you have everything your furry friends need in an easy-to-carry grab-and-go bag. To learn more about preparing an emergency kit, visit mil.wa.gov/preparedness and get 2 weeks ready.
Be sure to get your low-cost 2-week supply of food with a miraculous 25-year shelf life by going to preparewithgroundzero.com.
Have you noticed that well-known and controversial talk show hosts have recently been censored on the internet by corporate and political interests? This is Clyde Lewis from Ground Zero Radio. And in order to counter against the suppression of information, we've decided to create our own private digitalized playground called Aftermath.media. It's an exclusive online multimedia library featuring videos, movies, audio clips, archive shows, ebooks, e-magazines, documents, and so much more. Our news aggregator, Newsifer, provides current news relating to many of the topics we cover. We'll also be hosting other Ground Zero-friendly podcasts like Into the Paranormal with Jeremy Scott and The Secret Teachings with Ryan Gable. Aftermath.media has a social media platform along with a chat room to interact with many of our listeners. And about once a month, you can chat with me about anything. Mobile apps for Android and Apple are now available. The monthly subscription for Aftermath.media is only $9.99 a month. This includes exclusive access to our library and Ground Zero archive podcasts. If you're just interested in having access to the archive podcast, it's only $4.99 a month. So sign up today by going to Aftermath.media. Again, that's Aftermath.media. Hey guys, it's Clyde Lewis. Have you ever wanted Ground Zero merchandise but didn't know where to go? Well, I want to let you know that we now have our own online store with such items as t-shirts, hoodies, decals, tote bags, and other exclusive specialty apparel. There's a secure and easy-to-use shopping cart for your purchases. Coming soon will be signed posters and coffee mugs available as we are constantly adding new items. So shop today at the official Ground Zero store by going to groundzeromerch.com. That's groundzeromerch.com. Okay, we're back. Dave Dahl, Channel Weird. It's okay. We're talking about all the success, talking about how wonderful your bread is. It is. It's wonderful. For those who haven't had Dave's Killer Bread, it's amazing. You should try it at least once in your lifetime. You'll find it being an experience. It's an amazing experience. So all this success, all this wonderful stuff going on in your life, you're becoming, a well-known name, household name here in the Pacific Northwest and elsewhere. One day, because I was working in a newsroom, I'm reading a story that's breaking on the news that you have become. Let's just put it this way: they say that you're unstable, something's going on mentally, you're falling apart, and that a lot of your employees are like not happy. Things are going wrong, and I'm thinking, what's going on with Dave Dahl? And then we hear that, and correct me if I'm wrong, if I remember vaguely. You get into a high-speed chase with the cops, and they...
Not high speed.
It wasn't a high-speed chase?
No.
Okay, so you get in a chase with the cops. You wind up in Beaverton, was it? Or somewhere?
I was in Southwest Portland.
So in Southwest Portland.
Close to Beaverton.
The standoff happens, and I'm listening intently to the police and saying, I hope they don't shoot Dave Dahl. They don't kill Dave Dahl.
Well,
What happened? What happened?
Well, it's like a book in itself, but okay. I had started drinking to the point of where I needed to go to treatment. So I mean, it was such a long story. I'm going to try to cut to the chase. I went to Utah of all places. Went to treatment in Utah, and because we didn't want people to know I was in treatment. So,
Right.
So then I came back. There were some problems, but they were. It's weird when you are the face of a brand. You're kind of like out there. And people are going to see everything or get an idea about you. And so I went. Okay, I'm gonna keep trying to cut to the chase. Long story short, I went to. I got kicked out of the company. Okay. Not exactly, but I mean, I was sent on a sabbatical.
Right. Exactly.
I was the president of the company, but we had hired a CEO to run stuff, and he was freaking out. Everybody was freaking out because we'd already sold half the company. So now we had partners and stuff, and everything was just complicated. So now I'm just this guy who seems to be a loose cannon, right? And one day, the sabbatical had gone on for a while, and the sabbatical meant I couldn't even come to my own company to hang out, and talk to my employees and stuff.
Okay.
One day I said, there's this big bodybuilder guy who was somebody I sponsored with a bread, and he wanted to come and take pictures with me that day. So I'm like, well, screw it, I can do whatever I want. These people are telling me I can't. But so anyway, I went there. He never showed up, as far as I know. But there was this big cardboard cutout of me in there, same as life-size cutout. And I looked at it, and I go, this guy can be here, and I can't, without saying those words.
Right.
And I punched it.
Right.
I just destroyed it. And stupid. But that started a sequence of events that just got worse and worse as the day went on. There were cops involved, but they didn't arrest me or anything. Later on, Michelle and I, my wife, we were up in not Olympia, but Tumwater.
Yeah.
And we were heading to Seattle to see somebody. But I asked her to go get me some booze. I hadn't drank for a month or two. And I asked her because I was so crazy that day. It got worse and worse and worse. And that's the whole deal about it. I wish Michelle was here to tell you. I was speaking in tongues. I mean, I was something else.
Right, exactly.
And she actually taped it. And so I was going nuts. It was the first time in my life that I experienced mania. That was like hypomania. And then by the end of the night, when the cops busted me, I was manic. And I didn't even know what manic meant at the time. So we ended up at somebody's house, and nobody could really figure out what to do with me. And so they called the cops, and thinking that, or they called mental health, and the cops came instead.
Sure.
And the cops didn't handle it well, and obviously I didn't handle it well, and it just got out of control. And you know, they weren't chasing me down the street, like we weren't going fast.
Right. They made it sound like you were in a high-speed chase or something. Because I was like watching it unfold or listening to it unfold when I was in the news studio, and I said to a colleague of mine, I said, "Is that Dave Dahl they're chasing?" And they go, "Yeah, that's Dave Dahl." And I'm going, "Oh my God, I hope nothing happens to him. I hope he's okay." You know, because I heard about something like the employees said you were erratic behavior, you punched something, you hurt something. Somebody was saying, and then all of a sudden,
it's pretty harmless.
Yeah,
though.
all these stories though that generate. I'm thinking, wow, you know. And then, you know, I heard about the police thing, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I don't want this to end like most police chases do, where they don't know how to handle the guy who's having a mental breakdown. I was thinking maybe it was the success that got to you, or that you were having some sort of relapse. Thought maybe you were doing drugs again. I was worried. And it's funny because, you know, when you pay attention to somebody, like I was paying attention to you, and just, you know, because I knew your story, and then I heard about this, I was feeling horrible because I thought it can't end for Dave in a way where he winds up being shot and killed by cops.
Yeah.
And so when I heard that the cops didn't do that they finally were able to...
They thought about it.
Yeah. Well, when they finally got you to where they could, you know, get you back to normal again, I actually, now get all of this, I was at the Multnomah County Parade. It was in Multnomah Village. So I was in the Multnomah Village, and I was there because I actually, there's a place called Fat City where I used to frequent and eat there. Now I don't because it's been closed because of COVID. But I used to eat there all the time, and so I was kind of like a staple there at Multnomah Village. And they wanted me to be in the parade. So I was in the parade, and I wound up talking to the police chief. And I walked right up to him, and I shook his hand, and I said, "I want to tell you this." And I know it's going to sound weird, but I did. I actually did this. I said, "Thank God that you guys did not harm Dave Dahl."
That's interesting because that area, Multnomah Village, is probably Washington County. I'm not sure, but I think it is. Yeah, it is. And it was Washington County cops that got me. So, I mean, it was the weirdest thing. And, you know, there is something to be said for improper police procedure. You know what I mean? Because it definitely was to be said there in that case. They didn't have to escalate to that level. They knew I was a mental case. They knew I had a mental issue. So they should have treated me like a mental patient instead of a criminal.
Exactly.
So, you know, hey, and so the rest of my life, you know, I got like 15 years where I have to, you know, I have to do what I'm told. And it doesn't mean I don't get to go out.
So they gave you abeyance.
Yeah.
I've had that happen to me too.
What's that?
I had abeyance given to me too at one time. Because they thought, what had happened is that I was in my car. I used to have long hair. Look kind of like a Rob Zombie, you know.
Yeah.
Had long. Yeah, you're trying to get that look too. We're all going to look that way someday. But anyway, I was in my car. Some cop saw me. He thought I was a suspect in some crime. And what was weird is I had in my trunk, get a load of this, a Mike Myers mask, because I knew the guy that played Mike Myers in Halloween 6, and a knife.
Oh, no.
So they thought I was some weirdo.
Robber.
And and some cop says, "I'm going to make this happen." And so what happened is I cut my hair. I went to the judge and I said, "This is nonsense," you know, and I lost my car because of it. And so she said to me, she said, "Well, you need to go. Your sentence will be you have to go a year without any kind of run-in with the cops, and then we'll just basically clear your record of everything," which is, I thought, weird.
Did they put restrictions on you, though?
Oh, yeah. They put restrictions on me, too. But it was nothing that I did, only that I looked weird. And I said my civil rights were violated or whatever. and the judge says, "Don't tell me how to run my court." I'm going, whatever, you know. But I guess...
Sounds like modern days.
Yeah, I played along.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that big of a deal. I mean... And they found like aspirin on me, and they said it was drugs and all this other nonsense. Yeah. But that was back in the day when, you know, certainly when I did Ground Zero in the beginning, I was just like this badass. Yeah. I said, you know, screw you, I can do what I want and everything. And then I grew up, and I realized that, you know, in order to be a good broadcaster, you know, you got to do some things and behave a certain way. So, yeah.
Play the game.
Everybody goes through those things where they have a lot of success, and then they get a wake-up call. My wake-up call was cancer. My wake-up call was... You know, treat yourself better.
Yeah, and that's exactly it, man. I remember I learned some great lessons in prison and all the things that I did in order so I could actually make bread, do the things I did.
Right.
And I mean, there was a lot to making bread, speaking, doing all the things I did. It was like an unbelievable opportunity.
Exactly.
And it was like every day, all the time. So I loved that. But, then I learned the things that I learned that was so important was humility. And humility, acceptance, gratitude.
Yes.
And then all those things produce courage for me.
We're going to talk more with Dave Dahl right here on Channel Weird. Do a wrap up with Dave and talk with him about the future, what's going on in his life now, how things are just amazing with Dave Dahl. Channel Weird. I'm Clyde Lewis, and we'll be back.
By the way,
AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com. Are you stressed? I mean, who isn't? Anxiety creeping in? No, not that. Is sleep hard to attain because your brain just won't slow down? We're living in crazy times, and the fear knob has been turned up. Okay, there's an answer. Take a big breath, exhale, and go log on to AncientLifeOil.com. CBD, broad and full spectrum, organic and non-GMO CBD for you to enjoy. Change your tune from fear to calm, from brain overload to clear thinking. 0.003 THC on full spectrum and 0% THC on broad spectrum. Competitive pricing with the best quality. Also know everything is going to get better. No worries, be happy. CBD can help calm so your nerves don't think they're a 6-string electric guitar. Enjoy life, smile, and log on to AncientLifeOil.com for great CBD. That's AncientLifeOil.com. You'll be glad you did.
Following a disaster, your home emergency kit will be invaluable. Building a kit doesn't take long, and you'll be glad you did when disaster strikes. Here's a list of items to include: a first aid kit, battery-powered or hand crank radio, flashlight, extra batteries, an emergency whistle, cell phone with charger, cash and small bills, a local map with your family meeting place identified, food and water to last 2 weeks, garbage bags, dust masks, and seasonal clothing and footwear. Add prescription medications or any other important items unique to your family's needs. Once you've created your kit, check food expiry dates once a year and update seasonal clothing for growing children. If you have pets, make sure you have everything your furry friends need in an easy-to-carry grab-and-go bag. To learn more about preparing an emergency kit, visit mil.wa.gov/preparedness and get 2 weeks ready.
Be sure to get your low-cost 2-week supply of food with a miraculous 25-year shelf life by going to preparewithgroundzero.com.
Have you noticed that well-known and controversial talk show hosts have recently been censored on the internet by corporate and political interests? This is Clyde Lewis from Ground Zero Radio. And in order to counter against the suppression of information, we've decided to create our own private digitalized playground called Aftermath.media. It's an exclusive online multimedia library featuring videos, movies, audio clips, archive shows, ebooks, e-magazines, documents, and so much more. Our news aggregator, Nucifer, provides current news relating to many of the topics we cover. We'll also be hosting other Ground Zero-friendly podcasts like Into the Paranormal with Jeremy Scott and The Secret Teachings with Ryan Gable. Aftermath.media has a social media platform along with a chat room to interact with many of our listeners. And about once a month, you can chat with me about anything. Mobile apps for Android and Apple are now available. The monthly subscription for Aftermath.media is only $9.99 a month. This includes exclusive access to our library and Ground Zero archive podcasts. If you're just interested in having access to the archive podcast, it's only $4.99 a month. So sign up today by going to Aftermath.media. Again, that's Aftermath.media. Hey guys, it's Clyde Lewis. Have you ever wanted Ground Zero merchandise but didn't know where to go? Well, I want to let you know that we now have our own online store with such items as t-shirts, hoodies, decals, tote bags, and other exclusive specialty apparel. There's a secure and easy-to-use shopping cart for your purchases. Coming soon will be signed posters and coffee mugs available as we are constantly adding new items. So shop today at the official Ground Zero store by going to groundzeromerch.com. That's groundzeromerch.com. We're back with Dave Dahl, Channel Weird. So now your life's all boring, right? You're just living a boring life.
I never get bored.
No, I don't think you do. You doing cars again? You back to cars?
No, I have a few cars.
Yeah, somebody noticed that you pulled in, and they're like, "Whoa, what's that? It's a big car,
It's a
nice
Jeep.
cars." Oh, yeah.
Oh no, we were driving the pickup today.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I got it covered with the the Rhino liner.
Yeah.
So it's very rare to see something like that in Portland, but down in Dallas, Texas, they have quite a few of them.
So okay, so you sold the bread company, and now you're living off of your success.
Yeah.
What are you planning on doing now? What is your focus?
Well, I have African art. That I have thousands of pieces of African art. It's weird. People go, "What African art? Are you African?" No, I'm not. That's why I like it. It has nothing to do with me.
Right.
But I'm I went too far with it, and now I had to actually build a warehouse, a 15,000 square foot warehouse to house it, and that's okay. I mean, I needed to keep the cost down because it's costing you hundreds of grands a year to run this business, and I have employees and all this kind of stuff. So it's cool. I mean, it's fun. It's different. But we don't make money. So it's more like, okay, I finance my business by throwing money at it.
Is it a hobby and a business at the same time?
It's a hobby, yeah.
Okay.
So it is a time consuming. It takes a lot of my time, and then I have properties. I have things. The properties make me money. You get what I'm saying? So those are the things that make money, and they don't take that much time.
Right.
As much. And so, I mean, that's basically where I'm at. I have a few cars. The cars are, I don't like having so many cars because they're a pain. They're a pain in the butt, I'm not a car guy in the sense like Jay Leno or something like that. Where
Right. Exactly.
And if I had to do over, Clyde, what I would do is instead of African art, I would have done guitars. That's solid money right there.
Guitars are cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a chance to see when I was a kid. Rick Nelson's guitars are Cheap Trick. He showed me his guitars. I met him backstage at a concert. It was awesome.
He's
I loved
probably
it.
a pretty cool dude.
Yeah, he was a cool dude. Awesome guy. So okay, now to anybody out there, and I'm sure there are plenty of people out there that right now with COVID-19 and the lockdowns, they're feeling struggled. They're feeling, kind of sad and kind of out of it, and many of them lost their jobs. If there was any advice to give to people about how to bounce back and what to do, I mean, you're the king of bounce back. So what is it that you could tell people that would help them understand that the hardship is not necessarily a hardship forever?
Not forever. I went to prison 4 times, and I was a miserable guy before that, and it seemed like there was no hope. And the thing is, I didn't need to make a lot of money in order to be happy. What I learned, the happiness or the money came after the happiness, and then the challenge was to keep the happiness because it goes to your head and all that kind of stuff. So the best thing that I ever learned in life was to accept myself and to be humble. It's so hard that you can't just tell somebody, "Oh, be humble."
Right.
It's just, you have to learn that. Humility, acceptance, gratitude, and from those things, and those are essentially like 12-step thoughts too. A person can learn that through through 12 steps and all that, because it gets rid of those things, those shells, the things you have on your surface that destroy you. You have to get past that. Yeah, in my opinion, you have to get past that, and you have to learn to be humble. And I still have to remind myself that all the time, because as a baker, okay, before I was a baker even, I learned humility, and I took that, and I was like, okay, if I ever lose this, I'm fucked. You know, I'm screwed. If I ever lose what I've learned here, then I can go off the rails.
Right.
And that's what I did. I was so beloved in a way, you know, just kind of like beloved as a character, not me. They didn't know me, you know, but I was so appreciated in what I was doing that I kind of got lost. And so what I'm saying is, you know, for anyone out there, learn to accept yourself and your faults. Learn to be humble. And humility means you're not less or more than anyone else. That's my humility.
Right.
I'm not less than you are, but I am not more either. And that was a big lesson for me, you know.
Learning that, you know, to rely on yourself.
Well, yeah, reliance on yourself is really important because, I mean, that worked for me, you know.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people don't realize that, you know, if they go off chasing rainbows, sometimes the rainbows are right there in your own backyard. Sometimes these are things that you have to, you know, realize for yourself. And one of the things I had to learn how to do was delegate because I was doing it by myself. And I realized that I had to bring in people, and I was afraid to bring in people that cared about me. Yeah. And that's another thing, too, is you have to understand that there are people out there that do care about you. And you have to connect. Connect is important because otherwise, if you're not connecting, you know, you're off doing something that's not good for you.
I think it's really important to connect. I think that you know, your people. I have daughters. I have granddaughters.
Yeah.
And I try to get along with people who don't agree with me.
Right.
But that's a challenge.
It is a challenge now. It really is a challenge now with politics and everything else.
Politics, yeah. So I, in a sense, I'm like, okay, shut up about politics. But I did come out and say some things, and boy, people were like, "What? What? That's you?"
Well, I think that people need to also understand that, you know, no matter what, whatever your opinions are, don't be afraid to express them. I know we live in a cancel culture, but still, don't be afraid to express your opinions. And you made a good point too. Family. You know, I have a family.
Yeah.
And I'm holding on for dear life. I mean, it would devastate me if I lost. Because
what kind of family are you talking?
Well,
about?
I got a wife, and I've got a stepson, and I've got a son.
Yeah.
And they're valuable to me.
Yes.
And before, I didn't have that value. I didn't value the family. I've been married 3 times. I didn't value that. I didn't value anything. And then I put more value into my wife and my stepson, and I realized I'm hanging on for dear life here. I would not do anything to ruin them or to make them feel, you know, and if it did, it would devastate me.
They're more important than I am. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's what I see.
Yeah.
Finally, you have somebody who's more important than you are, and you want to strive to be good in front of them as well.
Yeah, and that's not you know, being down on yourself. That's just like, are you kidding? Those people need to have their lives. You know, they're more important than mine. I've already done it. You know what I mean? Yeah. But well, one thing, old Justin just came up to me a minute ago. Old Justin McDonald, pretty boy, came up and he goes, "You got to mention that we're doing the talk. This is a new platform,
Talkcast.pdx or Talkcast PDX.
Yeah. So, folks, please check out our new platform.
Talkcast PDX basically saved my ass.
Yeah.
I mean, when they changed the studios, we were here. They were here backing us up, and while it was still a rudimentary affair, we were still getting out. Our broadcast was still getting out from this place, and so.
Well, I'm proud of that.
Yeah. Well, you know, and this is your studio.
Yeah, I put some money in. I'm not the brains behind it, but yeah, it's been a blast. It's going to be great. I think a lot of cool is going to happen. So happy to have you.
So I can thank you. You actually saved me too.
Yeah. So happy to have you, man. I mean, you help us by being here.
Well, thank you.
So that's a cool thing, you know.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad I had an opportunity to talk with you and
me too.
And meet up with you because, like I said, I mean, it's kind of weird that I felt like I had this kinship with you or something, especially when I was in the lowest part of my life, listening to how your life transpired and thinking, you know, there are always people out there that they always survive, and you're a survivor.
Well, I want to have you on my show. I'm going to have a show called Against the Grain, and what I'm going to do is interview people who they've overcome struggles,
Right,
okay?
right.
And they're successful. They don't have to be like rich, but successful in
Right.
the sense.
Well,
they
obviously, I'm
overcame-
not rich. So yeah, that'll be
Just
another
keep hanging out with me, boy.
Channel Weird, Dave Dahl. It was such a pleasure. Again, thank you so much. And for all of you, we're going to air this again on Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube. It'll be around, I think, 7 or 8 o'clock in the evening. So check out Dave again. And thank you so much again, Dave. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll be back next week with another Channel Weird. So stay with us.